Hi everyone, welcome back to Infinite Math Help Squared. Shout out to all the old and new subscribers on the channel. Welcome. I hope the channel is helping you learn and understand your math better. There have been some really great questions regarding other videos on measuring angles specifically in polygons. So hopefully this video gives you a little bit of background as to how it's working and why it's working, right? So let's start with how do we even make an angle, right? It starts with 2D space. What do I mean by 2D space? I mean by 2 dimensions. They are going in opposing directions. So we'll talk a little bit about this. We've seen it in our rectangles where this is a 90-degree angle, right? So what do I mean by 2D space, right? So this is 2D space, right? A piece of paper, like your loose leaf paper for school, is an example of 2 dimensions. You have a length and you have a width. Sometimes they call it height, which is kind of weird because you don't typically see paper standing up like the height of a person, but it's interchangeable, like a height and a width, or a length and a height, something like that. So we're not talking about 3D space, right? But it does exist. And it does create angles and side lengths as well. Right now, we're just talking about 2D space. So points, segments, and angles in 2D space. Here we go. So I'm a student. I have a piece of paper in front of me. It's in 2D space. It's representing that plane. And I'm doodling a little bit, and I want to create a point. I just randomly put a point somewhere. Well, that point has no dimension. It's just a point somewhere on the 2D plane or 2D space. And what do I mean by 2D plane? 2D plane, in mathematics, right? The 2D plane is infinite. It's going to go in both of these directions forever and ever, and I can have points and segments and angles on that plane. But for us, we're limited to right here, what's in front of us. Our piece of paper is 2-dimensional, so that's what I mean. So our space is limited. It's not infinite. All right, now, let's say if I can create one point, couldn't I create another point? Of course I could. I can create as many points as I want, right? Usually if we're doodling, we just keep doodling until someone tells us to stop. Or we, I don't know, get bored. So if I can do that, now I have 2 points, maybe I connect those 2 points, right? So as soon as you connect those 2 points, now you just created a segment. I don't know why my pen is not writing very well. It's kind of weird. Yeah, I don't think it's communicating well with my iPad. So there you have a segment, right? But again, same idea. If I can make more than 1 point, couldn't I make more than 1 segment? Of course I could. All I have to do, and it doesn't matter where you draw it, now I have 2 segments and they're connected somehow, correct? So, they're connected right here at this vertex. Let's get rid of that mistake. They're connected here at this vertex, meaning where the 2 segments are meeting. They don't have to be segments. Typically in mathematics, you're not going to see endpoints here. Typically in mathematics, you'll see instead arrows because they're usually rays. Rays have an endpoint and then they continue forever in a different direction. So now, what have we been doing? We've been measuring the interior angle that has been created because of our doodling. We doodled, we made points, we connected them and made segments. As soon as you have 2 segments connected by a common point, now all of a sudden you've created this opening. So to talk about real life for a moment, let's talk about where we see angles in real life. Think about a door opening. A door opening, it could be closed, shut completely. Let's call that 0. But we can open the door at different degrees. So I can have it open and it's making a 90-degree angle, looks more like an L or the letter T, or I can open it slightly, right? But no matter how big or short the opening is, I can measure it with a protractor. I can measure it with degrees. Now, how is that different from measuring side lengths, right? Because measuring side lengths is different. Measuring side lengths would be, let's take a look at real life things that we would measure. I might want to measure, if I'm moving furniture around in a room, I'm updating some interior designs, I want to move furniture around, I might need to know the length or the width or the height of some of my furniture so I can move it around and so that it doesn't conflict with the other pieces that I want to do that. Now, what do I measure those with? I measure those with rulers. So try not to also mix up your measuring tools, right? Like, what do you measure 2 dimensions with? I measure height and length and those things. I measure those typically with rulers or tape measures. And so we're talking about centimeters, meters, inches, feet. We're talking about those types of measurements. Like for example here, how long did I make my ray or my segment in the beginning? How long were these, right? That's different from how wide is this opening, okay? So I want to make sure that we understand the difference between measuring an angle or measuring a side length. Now let's take a look at a couple of other real life examples. Like, why might we be interested in this? Isn't this a really nice 90-degree angle that this person is making about to throw a football, right? We see these in sports. We see these in our real life, right? This person is kicking the ball. Maybe they want to get better at their kicks. So they talk to their coach about, like, what angle do I need to make with the ground versus where I'm actually making contact with the soccer ball. Okay, let's talk about, like, while I'm in the comfort of my living room or my porch, right? Like, maybe I want to open the blinds in a way where light is shining away from me or giving me some modicum of privacy, but also allowing light in the room, right? So you can open them and they make a 90-degree angle with the window and they let all that light in, face straight ahead. Or maybe I angle them and it's only going in a certain way, or maybe I don't want the sun beaming into the room and making certain parts hot. But that's basically the idea, guys, here with angles and side lengths. All right, so let's just make sure that we don't mix them up. Side lengths versus angles. Right? I hope that video was helpful to explain, how do we create angles to begin with and what are we actually measuring. All right, till next time.